All right, can everybody hear me? All right, I'm Kevin Priddy. As Ray was saying, I'm from Grayson County. I do about 40,000 small square bales of hay a year. Ray asked me here to talk about orchard grass. We start with our orchard grass. My biggest thing is to start out with a good seed bed. Second thing, I pick a real good quality seed. There's a lot of varieties out there. You just got to be your own judge. We try to pick a top quality. I'm kind of like Brad. We go off of the maturity on it. To me, the critical part of any of your forage crops is starting off with a real good seed bed. If you can't make that seed to soil contact, you know, you're not going to be very successful. With that being said, when we get our orchard grass established, which I usually try to establish in the fall of the year because orchard grass is a cool season grass, I figure I've got the moisture, the cooler weather. I get my root system established before we start into the hot weather of the next year. We start out in the following spring. We've run our soil test. We fertilize according to our soil test. We're running, and this may be more than what most people would, we're running 100 units of nitrogen right on the beginning. We take our first cutting off, we go back with another 50 units. It's kind of like Clayton Gerald's has said before, this is kind of how I do. It might not be how to, but that's what we do. We're cutting. We're using conditioners on everything. Of course, I grow alfalfa and orchard grass, so we're using conditioners on everything. The thing about the orchard grass, I can tether it if I need to. I don't worry about losing much. We can get it dry. We cater to mostly the horse market, and we're having real good luck with a lot of our pure orchard grass stands. We really like orchard grass mixed with our alfalfas. That's a top seller. The thing about orchard grass, it's kind of inexpensive. We can drill it into our alfalfa. If we have a year that we need to clean up, we'll go back with some Roundup, clean it up, and we go right back that fall with orchard grass in it again. But to me, some of the key things is your seed selection, your soil preparation, your fertility right off the bat, and I think if you go with those three things, you're going to be successful.
Exactly how are you preparing the soil?
Well, we disc everything. I'm kind of particular about getting my seed bed prepared. And on some of our lease ground, we've actually got a land leveler that we run over it. I've got a do-all, which is an old piece of equipment, but I looked up and found one up in Illinois. We run that do-all over it to really pulverize the ground, and then we're actually seeding with a brilliant seeder.
Okay. So similar like you'd seed alfalfa maybe?
Yep. And sometimes on our grasses, because we wouldn't care to see that seed a little deeper in the ground, I will actually have sometimes a guy to follow behind me with another color packer and go over a second pass to try to work that seed into the ground just a little deeper.
What seeding rate are you using with your orchard grass?
When we start off, and I'm kind of like Brad, we're running, most of the time I'm running a Timothy and orchard mix. Now, if I'm going straight orchard, I'm still probably going 18 to 20 pound. I like it thick. I mean, I've had some of the county agents in the past tell me, well, you're seeding it too thick, it's going to kill itself out and everything. But I want to start off as thick as I can to keep my stems as small as I can. Now, with that being said, I'm like, Brad, we want to cut, if we can, before we get the seed heads in the orchard grass, because the horse market does not want to see those heads. They confuse it with fescue and everything. So
questions out there for folks back here?
So what ratio do you find your alfalfa orchard grass?
And repeat the question.
Okay, he's asking what ratio we plant alfalfa and orchard grass. Well, we start out with a pure stand of alfalfa. We'll go for about 3 years.
That's
And,
Roundup Ready alfalfa, Kevin?
huh?
Roundup Ready alfalfa?
Yes, everything I've got's Roundup Ready. At the end of that, most usually it's at the end of that 3rd year. Sometimes we'll push for 4 years if we're needing more alfalfa. We're seeding in 10-pound orchard grass to the acre. Same way on actually our orchard grass. We reseed any of our orchard grass, Timothy orchard grass, we reseed every fall with 10 pound of the acre. That way we keep a good thick stand and try to keep our stems and everything as small as possible. As long as you can stay thick, that stem won't have the tendency to get such a big diameter on it.
So just a no-till drill, right?
Yes.
in the sand is
Yep.
all. Are there questions related specifically to orchard grass? Yeah, Mark.
So, you did mention that, you paid attention to your maturities under orchard grass. What's the desired maturity for, orchard grass in your operation?
Well,
That question, Kevin.
he's asking about the maturity on the orchard grass. I'm looking for as late a mature orchard grass as I can find, because it seems like, especially the last few years around here, we've been having some wet springs. So I'm trying to push that maturity off just as far as I can. Now, with my Timothy mixtures, I'm going with an early maturing Timothy, late maturing orchard grass. That way I get my Timothy heads, but I'm not getting the orchard grass heads. But as I said, we don't really want to see those orchard grass heads if we can keep from it at all. Now, most usually your first year, you'll not have many heads anyway. But the second year is when you got to start looking out for that. Actually, I'm looking at trying something new this year with our alfalfa and our orchard grass stands. I think because of that heading situation, and we're having a lot of trouble with heads in the alfalfa, like I said, with our springs and the weather we've been having here lately, we're getting a lot of orchard grass heads in our alfalfa on our first cutting. That's a real non-desirable hay in the horse market. So what I'm looking at doing this year is, like I said, orchard grass is kind of inexpensive anyway. I'm going to start taking my first 2 cuttings off every year, and then I'm going to spray my fields and kill the orchard grass out, and I'm going back in the fall and reseed. Then I don't have to worry about that first cutting next year having as many heads in it. It's just a new tool that I'm going to try. May not work.
And in the orchard grass report out on the table, we've got the maturity listed for when we made that first cutting. Some years there's a better separation than others, so probably look at several of the tests to say which are really the late maturity in Kentucky. The companies they'll show you the ones that are later maturing, but sometimes that data may have come from Oregon. It may not match up as good for what maturity is in Kentucky. Yeah.
Now he's put me on the spot with these seed companies here.
Be honest, tell us yourself.
Okay.
Repeat the question, Kevin.
He's asking what varieties that I'm sowing on the pure orchard grass stands, and I guess I would have to say right now I'm using Barenbrug. We're using an HLR or an intensive.